Welcome, dear friends and listeners, to American Freedom Radio. I'm Santos Bonacci, and today in Melbourne, Wednesday, the 27th of February, 2 p.m., nice and wet kind of a summer's day. Now, I have a wonderful guest today, as I said yesterday, announced yesterday, and without further ado, I'm very confident that as soon as I mention the listener, a good 90 to 100% will know who I have on the show, and that is Freeman from the Freeman perspective. Welcome, Freeman. How are you?
Hey, great to be here with you, Santos. It's been something that's needed to happen.
Yeah, and great to have you. Thanks for accepting. And I've known about you since I've been consciously awake in the truth conscious expansion movement, and that's at least 6 or 7 years. So I'm sure the listeners know who you are. You've been on American Freedom Radio several times too, with Mel Fabregas, the Truther Girls, and you mentioned a few others, and you had your own show here. So welcome back.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I've been off the air for a little while now because we've been writing. And, well, we just finished a year-long trip in a school bus to prove synchronicity to people, to try and show them that life is bigger and bolder than anyone has in their own minds. And so we set out to one-up the merry pranksters, and we certainly did that. We made a sacred spiral around the entire United States in a massive school bus. And just to show people that they are actually free, that you can go out into the world and find goodness, kindness, and everything will open the path for you. And I had hoped that me lugging around a 30-ton school bus would show people that you could do this on your own in your car. But we did it. We did it for an entire year. Traveling in a sacred spiral around the United States, going everywhere, visiting everyone. And because of the Internet, we had a golden path waiting for us. People just emailing, saying, come to my house, come to my house. And we were just led on this sacred spiral. We didn't intend to do a sacred spiral, but it made itself. And we ended up actually doing the Merry Pranksters trip in reverse without even knowing it. So quite amazing year last year. So I haven't been around on the air as much recently. And now we've been writing weird stuff, and we're almost done. I mean, we're to the publishing phase now, which is another big leap in learning. And so I'm really excited about everything that's happening.
And what does weird stuff, it's a magazine, what sort of content will it have?
Yeah, it's really a cross. It's hard to say that it's a magazine, a book, or an encyclopedia, but it's all of that. Weird Stuff, we titled it Weird Stuff because we wanted the name to be innocuous. We want people to be able to laugh at the conspiracy theories or to take them to heart. You know, we'll give you all the data, the evidence, everything you need to understand, but this way you can place it in someone's hands that is usually a skeptic, and they can laugh, scoff, or do whatever they want, but they're going to learn. And Weird Stuff actually is an encyclopedia of the occult, using pop culture, politics, and even new technologies to start to understand how the occult is mingled in with our reality. Because that's what really set me off, Santos, was as I came out and I learned about Freemasonry, I suddenly realized that people were practicing a formal ritual magic, ceremonial magic for all of these centuries and even millennia. And then I find that all of the corporate leaders, all of the presidents, they're all belonging to these esoteric orders like Freemasonry. Skull and Bones is another. And it sparked this curiosity. I mean, what is the occult? You know, there was something to this. There weren't all these people devoted to it and it have nothing. So that set me off on my quest right there. And I found out my father was a worshipful master for the Freemasons in Kaiserslautern, and that he had worked for Project Blue Book chasing flying saucers, and that he was on Killer One submarine with Jimmy Carter. Meanwhile, my mother's a Bavarian youth, Nazi youth, from Bavaria, like the Pope, and has personally met Walt Disney, who I talk extensively about. And my whole family turned out to be involved in all of the subjects that I was already wanting to explore. It was amazing, and this is what opened the door for me.
Wow! So no wonder you went down that. You had that bent in you, and went down chasing conspiracies and looking into it. I mean, it was already there in your family without you knowing. When did you find that out?
And I would say it's genetic memory, because I myself had been studying UFOs, the Bermuda Triangle, all the Time Warner freak out paranormal books, all of that stuff from the time I could read. 10 years old, I'm digging in. And UFOs, huge into UFOs, right? And then to come out, and I was in college when I found out my father's involvement. Because in college, I met this character who introduced me to esotericism, to magic and practice of magic. And so in college, I realized how naive I was and how little I knew about how the world works when we started looking at this puzzle. But then as I started to look at the things he was showing me, and Freemasonry, of course, was prime in that, I see symbols that I immediately recognized. And I realized that I used to wear my father's Masonic insignia when I played Battlestar Galactica as a kid, right? So then I started to question Dad about it. Then I was like, wait, what's going on here, Dad? And he's like, oh, it's a bunch of gobbledygook, whatever, you just got to memorize. He got in for the reason of rising through the system. He did not care about the occult or the esoteric parts of it. And any time I brought him anything out of the ordinary, he scoffed. But then, then I'm like, but flying saucers are real? And he's like, yeah, flying saucers are real. I was stationed on an island in the South Seas with 4 radar dishes. It was my job to report these flying saucers and UFOs when they came through. I worked with Hynek and Project Blue Book, and I'm just like, oh, okay, wait a minute now. But I went to go get a final, confession from Dad, or just try to get some of this on the record from him, and as strange as a conspiracy could be, he died the day that I was supposed to show up. And it was bizarre, it's really bizarre how that would just fall like that, because no one expected it. And so I never did get the rest of the story.
Right. Did he see any of your work?
Somewhat. He wasn't too much into it, and he drank a lot, so his his attention skills weren't quite there. I remember I brought him a bunch of stuff on harp, because I thought with his connections to submarines and Jimmy Carter and stuff, and then I could find a common ground. And I started discussing harp as submarine communications and all of what things that it could do. And he looked at the papers I had printed out, and he doesn't want to read all that. And I'm just like, what am I going to do?
Wow. Yeah. You can bring them the water, but they'll drink when they're ready.
Well, you find that the people that are involved are the ones that are less likely to believe in any sort of conspiracy. I know the worshipful master here in town, and I'm telling him, well, why are you worried about being nervous about being pulled over? You got compass and squares on your brake lights, Don't worry about it. He's like, well, it doesn't work like that. You can't do that. And I'm like, dude, I pass myself off as a Mason all the time when I get pulled over. I promise you, I got a Mason sticker on the back of my car. I pull out my little Mason lingo, Don't worry, we're on the level, and things of this nature. And I get out of everything. But he doesn't believe in the conspiracy, and so he doesn't utilize it. He's worshipful master. He's High Rosicrucian. He's a member of, some 9, maybe more orders, and doesn't believe in the conspiracy, so he doesn't get to use it.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, because they're compartmentalized, This is why. It's been designed that way. So you can get guys that are very, very high up in their organizations that have filtered through, and they really have no knowledge of what's going on around them.
Absolutely, and they all joined for different reasons. Like I say, my dad joined because, well, my grandfather was a master mason, and that he had to rise himself throughout the ranks of the system. And in the military, you really can't get past E8 unless you swear at the altar. And there's, most of the jobs, if you want to get to the height of the corporation or, even in the military industrial complex, you have to be a Freemason. So this, was a huge clue to me. And I have now been to every Mason temple from Australia to America, England, even in Maya land back down in Palenque or Guatemala. I've visited Mason temples everywhere. I've spoken to these Masons. I'm actually in a Hollywood movie in the Mason Lodge, in the New York Grand Lodge, in the room where all the people that started Hollywood, like Lammel and Griffith and all the other moguls that started Hollywood, they all worship in a particular room in the New York Grand Lodge of Freemasonry because actors have to do their rituals during the day, is what they told us. So they get their own special altar. I knelt at the altar that Houdini knelt at, and the other room is the altar where Roosevelt had knelt, and he had his leg brace, and he broke the altar, and they proudly show, where Roosevelt broke the altar. Wow. So these are the things that started to lift me into a new understanding, a new paradigm, and to start to equate what I was seeing in politics and pop culture to the Kabbalah. Because Freemasonry, Albert Pike, who wrote the handbook for Scottish Rite Freemasonry, of course, we've got, different variations of Freemasonry. You got York Rite, Scottish Rite, you got Rosicrucians, Shriners, there's all these different levels. And Albert Pike, who outlined the 32 degrees of Freemasonry in the book Morals and Dogma, over 70 times exclaims that Freemasonry is Kabbalism. Mm-hmm. So this always made me a bit curious, too, because we're now talking about an ancient Jewish mysticism. So, as I'm looking around, I'm trying to find the foes, and I'm looking to Hollywood because I consider them evil. I'm looking to, the military-industrial complex, politics, and you do see a lot of Jewish influence. You do see that Hollywood is controlled by Jewish, television, and all of our media come through the Jews. But at the same time, I found them all to be Freemasons. Mm-hmm. And within the Freemasonic Lodge, you'll see the Star of David everywhere. You'll see that, they have the Torah, the Bible, and
Talmud.
Yes, thank you. On each altar, because they represent each religion there, and there's no. So when people start to see a Jewish conspiracy, you can put another layer on top of that and say, but wait, these men are also all Freemasons, and then you can also find plenty of people within the network that are controlling our reality, what I call the sorcerers of Atlantis. They, aren't always Jewish. So, this is something that I get bounced about a lot because I don't want to separate this to a racial thing, and I see that there's this cult, that they all belong to. So then that became more of my study.
Yeah. Well, the scriptures say one is a Jew inwardly and not outwardly. So, they've actually probably usurped the good name, because we know, of course, you've studied the Khazarian and the ancient Ashkenazi roots of a lot of Judaism. So,
absolutely,
yeah, it's very convoluted, isn't it? I was very familiar with Shlomo Sand's work. Have you seen Shlomo Sand? He's a Jewish scholar who goes around. I've got his book right here, actually, The Invention of the Jewish People. So it's but you're right. They're always there. They're always there. And you see it in the words jeweler, you see it in the words Jewry. It's the profession, the banking. It's the ones with that trade, But once upon a time, it was the noble one within, the aristocrat of heart, So they've kind of usurped everything and infiltrated everything. One question I'd love to ask you is, who's at the very top then? Is it the Jesuits that infiltrated the Masons, or is it the other way around? The Freemasons, there's word that the Freemasons have penetrated the Vatican since the 60s and 70s and have controlled that ever since then. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, wouldn't we love to know? That would be the ultimate answer. I think the person that had that answer would either be dead or famous. But there's all kinds of intermingling going on, and as you say, that we have this situation where the Illuminati were infiltrating the Freemasons at the creation of America. We got the Freemasons infiltrating the Vatican. We've got Jesuits invading over here, you know. And the real point was to show that each of these groups actually were performing ritual magic at the core of their belief system, and at the heart of their philosophical systems was the esoteric arts. And that's what I wanted to bring to the people. You know, I didn't want to point my finger at the bad guy and say this, because I couldn't tell you, honestly. You know, now the Pope has quit after exonerating the Knights Templar, meteors coming in on the planet. You know, and Barack Obama's about to go to Israel, and they're concerned about him entering the Temple Mount. And this was something that I've been talking about for quite some time, because I'm watching the play. I'm watching the plays as they play out. So as I was back in 2000 and around 98, I started talking about a terrorist event occurring sometime in the middle of September. And I kept talking about it, and I refined my esoteric studies, and I realized that 9/11 were these Luciferian numbers, 9 being the most satanic number, 11 being the one outside of the quintessential 10. And so 9 and 11 very quickly clued into me. So I restated my thesis, saying that there was going to be a major terrorist attack due to the fact that they needed to pass the Patriot Act in America, right? This is back in 98, 97. I started talking about this. And,
wow. I had no idea.
Yeah. So I came out and said, look, there's going to be a major terrorist attack on 9/11. Don't freak out. This is all for your reaction. Now, I said that every year leading up to the year 2000, and of course I was also a Y2K buff. I knew all of the essentials of Y2K and what was going down. I watched as they were getting ready to cap the Great Pyramid with gold, as they burnt the River Thames to the speed of the sun like the river Styx, and had the sun rise in the west in D.C. for the Y2K ritual. I witnessed all of this. I said they were going to force a president into office, and that it'll most likely be this character W, because W in Kabbalism is the number of the fallen angels, or the letter.
Hang on to that. Hang on to W and the fallen angels. We're off to a break. This is a heating up, guys. Hang in there. Back in a few short minutes. Welcome back, friends. American Freedom Radio. You're with Santos Bonacci and special guest Freeman, and we're getting Freeman's perspective. And before the break, we were talking about George W. Yeah, let's talk about that subject, eh? And the Kabbalah.
Yeah, more specifically, it was what led me to the revelation that W would be forced into office. It was the letter itself and the numerology of it. So, now, first of all, I just want to say that I don't tell this story to brag, and I wish I'd known about Alex Jones and Bill Cooper back in the day, because I absolutely would have phoned in with any of this, but I didn't know. So all I did was tell everyone around me. So I have eyewitnesses and to the account, but the idea is to share with people the method of my revelation so that they can then apply this, to what, because it keeps going, it hasn't stopped. Like I say, Obama's heading to the Temple Mount with Mavis, and this is something that I talked about for quite some time, is the idea that the Temple Mount would be the spark for World War III. Because I follow this brotherhood, because I look at what's going on with the Freemasons and their claim to the rights of the Temple Mount, and then with the Pope exonerating the Knights Templar, right? He began an investigation into the Illuminati, and then suddenly found, mysteriously discovered a hidden document that had been lost for 600 years that exonerated the Knights Templar of all their wrongdoings. So all of a sudden, that's a can of worms opened right there. And with Barack Obama showing up in Israel, the thing of it was that there was a Nostradamus prediction. Now, many people know about my Obama cloning theories, and we'll get into that, I hope, because the way that unfolded was insane. But as I did that research and the idea of Obama being the Antichrist, now there's a name. We're talking about W. Now, W is the letter of the fallen angels. I discovered this through my studies of corporate logos. As I went through each and every corporate logo, I could have identified the aspect of the Masonic ritual that it was to imply. So the sun sign of Target, The canted square is one that, it seems so simple, but to a Mason, they understand the meaning. It's the 47th proposition of Euclid. It's a sign of Horus. It's the rising sun again. And so something like a canted square. Or if you see, like on Dell, they have the canted square with the canted E, and E is the fifth letter going to the pentagram. So then you've got kind of a dual symbolism going on. And you can go on and on with every single corporate logo as to how they came up with the corporate logo inside of Masonic rituals. But when I got to Prince Philip's 66, I said, well, okay, I don't know what to think of 66. I can see that there are 6 points on the crest, and so I could easily say 666 on this. But so I went to a Kabbalistic dictionary and I looked it up. 66, what is this? It's the fallen angels. It's separation from God. It's excrement. It is the shells. It is the abyss. And I was like, okay, now I'm seeing. And then I learned that in Hebrew, the number 6 is V. And so then I started looking around going, wait a minute, now I'm seeing W's everywhere. There are W's all over as corporate logos. And then I saw Hitler's corporate logo for the Volkswagen. And, of course, he was a Kabbalist as well, studying very deeply into Madame Blavatsky's work. He carried around the books of Theosophy with him everywhere he went. And he used this VW logo, which, of course, is 2 V's interlaced. So you'll see the VV, which is the 666 symbolism of the abyss, coupled with another V because he crossed the 2 V's, or whoever, manufactured his corporate logo, and making a third V. So it's Volkswagen have 3 V's making 666 in Hebrew gematria. And this just kept going. Now, you look at Monster Drink logo. The Monster Drink, the claw marks on there, that's the Hebrew letter V. So the Monster Drink is 666. Not to be outdone by the Monster Drink called 666, or the energy drink, the 666 energy drink that came in the flavors of Lucifer lemonade and sacrificial virgin cherry. Then there's Monster, there's Demon, all of these drinks that people are putting into their bodies. And if you know anything about Dr. Emoto, this can't be good, right? Well, of course, they're all dying from this. But so I got the clue. I said, okay, 66, I'm seeing something here. And this story goes on. This takes it to the other dimension, up to CERN and what's going on with CERN. So I began to put these pieces together. And when I saw that they were going to bring this W to power, I said they're going to force W into office and make it obvious to the public. And then, sure enough, the Jeb Bush whole Florida scenario happened, and everybody knew that it was a Bushian coup. But I had already predicted it before it happened, so then I knew that that was just part of the game plan, part of the story. Just like the birther movement, I predicted that as well. I said after W, the next president won't be considered an American citizen, that it'll be the last American president. And sure enough, here comes all the birther stuff coming up about Obama. Now, I said that 3 years before we ever heard the name Barack Obama. Now, the name Barack Obama in Hebrew, in the language of Jesus, means lightning from heaven. Lightning is Barak, Bama, from the heights. These are the Hebrew words for lightning from heaven, which is the description of Satan in the Bible. But, of course, we know it's Barry Soetoro or whatever, Barry Dunham, his many numerous names, his 30-some-plus Social Security numbers, the fact that he's either Muslim from Hawaii, Kenya, or, Indonesia. And all of this I had laid out in the plan just by looking at the situation. But I guess I should also add that I was abducted before all of this started coming to me.
Wow.
Throw that in the middle of the mix.
Well, let's do that too. Do everything. Talk about everything.
You got it. But like I say, I want to share the method that I started, that I came through, so then everybody can see this. Because then this idea of 66, this really opened a portal for me. And pun definitely intended, as you'll see as we get to the end of this story. Because this is the symbol of the abyss, all right? So in the tree of life, on the Kabbalah tree of life, there are 10 sephirah, or 10 points, nodes. And they are connected by 22 separate lines. And those 22 lines are representations of the tarot cards. The 10 points, there is a hidden point hidden inside of the 10 points, and this one called Da'ath. And Da'ath is that 11th point. Now, Aleister Crowley, the most sinister magician out there, he adopted the spelling of magic with K at the end. And this is because K is the 11th letter in almost every language. And 11 is the cursed number, and that's how I came up with 9/11, realizing that that's when the event would occur. And it was when they forced W into office, as I said they would, that I said, okay, this is going to be the year. So, of course, that was 2001. And so I made a big stink about it, telling everyone not to freak out. 9/11, there's going to be a major terrorist attack. Don't trip out. And they are all like, oh, Freeman. And then it happened, And I had a line of people at my door just going, how did you know? How did you know? And I didn't have an answer, really. I didn't know. I just had put pieces of a puzzle together, and it came true. Now, this has consistently happened, and this idea of the VV66 abyss has continued to stay with me. And so now I sign into my server for my email, and it's the Open Exchange server, and the URL is OX6. Now, in English, the letters that equal 6, 6, and 6 are F, O, and X. F is the 6th letter, O is the 15th, which 1 and 5 make 6, and X is 24, 2 and 4 make 6. So the letters that you get with 666 are Fox, right? And, oh, God, can I follow the evil of Fox? I mean, these guys, they degenerated all the morals of anyone that ever watched their programming. But the OX, or the FF, or the FX, the 66, to me, was the more compelling one. And so the voice came out, right? And the voice, they have the V logo in the voice with a peace sign held over it, which, of course, is a symbol of Typhon that was taught to Churchill. Was it by Crowley himself? Trying to remember.
I think it was.
Yes. To fight off the solar forces of the Nazis, Crowley taught Churchill to use the powers of Typhon, and that's where the peace symbol comes from.
Yes.
Typhon is like Coronazone, who is the beast that lives in the abyss. So when you look at the voice logo, and you see the voice of the V and the V of the peace sign, they're put out by a company named Talpa. And Talpa's corporate logo is the Kabbalistic tree of life, but the node that would be heaven, the Sephirah of Kether, is moved into the abyss. So their corporate logo actually has heaven in the abyss. And they're coupled with another corporation out of New Zealand, I believe they are, Endemol, who put out Heroes. And, of course, Endemol is kind of a dark statement, and their corporate logo is a reptilian eye. And at that time, when Heroes came out, I was really getting deep into trauma-based mind control and understanding the horror that is satanic ritual abuse. And Madonna came up, Britney came up, Michael Jackson came up. All of these people came up in my studies. And here comes Madonna, just to top this XOVV symbolism off with the cherry. In the Super Bowl, she does her massive ritual, right? Did you watch any of that?
I did. Yes, I did. Quite perverse. You can see she's she's pretty demented at the moment.
Well, she is heavily devoted to Kabbalism. It's her entire life, and this was a sermon, as she called it, when she went out on the Super Bowl. And when she stood up there on the stage, they flashed below her feet the VV symbol circled with an O and an X. So the two V's actually made an X, and then that X was circled. And as I got, as I was saying, 66, the abyss, OX are the 66 numbers. But then I started to dig deeper. I got into Kenneth Grant, who was the person who took over the Ordo Templi Orientis for Aleister Crowley, the sexual ritual magic that they do.
Yeah.
And Kenneth Grant wrote a book about the beast and the hidden god, or Aleister Crowley and the hidden god. And in that, he starts talking about what the mark of the beast looks like. And he describes it as identical to the sigil of Nodens. And of course, I had to dig through so many esoteric books to try to understand what he meant by this, because Nodens was a character from H.P. Lovecraft. Now, when I turned down to H.P. Lovecraft and started realizing that he's discussing Sumerian fish people, it blew my mind, because this was at the core of everything I've done. That kind of goes back to the abduction that maybe we can get into next segment. Because the symbol that I found actually goes back to the Dogon and Sirius, and it's, well, we'll get to that. But so, now I'm finding that Lovecraft is all in this whole same picture. The Satanists, they all worship Cthulhu. And Cthulhu is a huge part and parcel of the abyss and dealing with all of this situation. So the heart of the sigil of Nodens was actually a O and an X, which of course is the symbol for the X-Men. And Brand X,
yes,
with Russell Brand.
Yeah.
And of course, it prominently displayed on Esther or Madonna's stage at the Super Bowl with the BV symbolism. And what I believe is that this is the symbol for the other side. This is their symbol for that anti-universe. And so at this moment, they sent this mechanism up to the International Space Station. It's called the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, or the AMS. And it is a device that sees into the anti-universe. I believe the Vatican was involved in launching the AMS. Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that.
Oh, they would be. They've got all of that stuff.
Well, they got their Lucifer telescope out there looking, and this has always brought me to the second sun symbolism and what that might possibly mean. And I do honestly believe that there is a second binary star to our system. And currently, the star that they believe is the binary is called G1.9. Now, curiously enough, G1.9, when you look at it, is identical to the Firefox logo. I mean, it's identical. And, of course, here we are again with the burning fox, or a burning 666, the Firefox. And it is that star, G1.9. So it's very possible that this esoteric knowledge has been passing down also this ancient history of astronomy that shows that there is a second sun, that you better start preparing. And it does make me worry that the Queen of Netherlands has just abdicated the throne. The Pope has decided to quit, and meteors are hitting the planet, if there are meteors. And we can get to that, too. But so that was kind of everything that blew my doors after Y2K, after the ritual that opened the capping the Great Pyramid with gold, and the entire ritual that they performed there. Everything became surreal to me, and I said, I can't participate in the real world any longer. And I walked away. And I have not had a job since 1999.
That sounds... Yeah, that's me too, since 2000. Yeah. You become sort of dysfunctional when you find reality, because the world is so unreal, man. It is so unreal. People are running an operating system that is full of viruses, full of infections, and they run that system. The whole world runs this ancient Babylonian patriarchal system of commerce. Wow, I've exposed it too, but I see, you've gone down all the same rabbit holes, brother. It's compelling, isn't it? Once you discover one deception that they've done to us, you've got to go down more rabbit holes, don't you?
Absolutely. I came up with, growing up, my first memories landing on the moon. Not myself, watching it on television. I was 2 years old. But, watching from Jamestown up to Dorner. This has been...
Let's go to the break, brother. Let's go to the break. The music snuck up on us quite quickly. Back in a few short minutes, friends. Welcome back, friends. You're on American Radio. And I'm Santos Bonacci with special guest Freeman. Before the break, you were on a really good subject, and I just forget what it was. So can we please go back to that, and then we'll go into meteorites and the abduction. That's two subjects that I'd like to discuss.
All right. Yeah. I was, I guess, just kind of going over the revelations that I had throughout time, watching the Jonestown event as a kid, growing up, waking up to Waco, and the different political schemes that I woke up to then finally have the revelation of, this is all wrapped up in the occult. Now, as a consideration, I didn't finish this one part of the tale. I was saying Barack Obama will be in Galilee, right, coming in on his Democratic donkey for Passover while they are preparing to select the new pope. And of course Malachi had prophesied that the 111th pope would be the last pope, and therefore this be the last pope, and that Well, Nostradamus had predicted that when Mabus dies, the Antichrist will rise. Now, curiously enough, what I've been covering for quite some time now, well, ever since Barack Obama went into office, I began tracking the space war news. And this is where we can get into the asteroids or meteors and how that all fell or didn't. And but he announced that he had put Ray Mabus in charge of the Navy and therefore in charge of the space war, because the United States Space Force currently is part of the U.S. Navy. And just as the Air Force was before, now we have the Space Force. And, of course, the X-37B is orbiting the planet right now on its third mission, top secret. And as it was launched, once it was up in space, there was a curious explosion in space that no one had ever seen before, filmed by an amateur astronomer. And the X-37B was up there. Now, the X-37B is the mini robotic space shuttle. And it's a telepresence robot in a way. It's an autonomous, there's no pilot, and it can be controlled using mind transfer technologies from the ground. But what has happened is Barack Obama, riding in on his Democratic donkey into Galilee as the knighted Messiah, is showing up with Ray Mabus. He's bringing Mabus to Israel. And Nostradamus' prediction was when Mabus dies, World War III begins. And this falls right into what I had been saying was coming in this whole situation. And I don't know. Once again, I'm just reporting the facts and wondering what's going to happen. And at the same time, here it is. It's he's bringing Mabus to the Temple Mount, and there's a huge issue there. There's a lot of PR going on right now as to whether or not Barack should be allowed to walk in through the Lion's Gate, which, of course, is a movie production company. It makes horrible, sinister films. And everything that I was kind of projecting into World War III is actually happening, plus bringing in Ray Mabus. And I've been to Ray Mabus's hometown in Jackson, Mississippi, and I made a whole film about it I call The Sorcerers of Atlantis, because that town of Jackson, Mississippi is so laid out to Kabbalistic symbolism, it's insane. Coupled with the Egyptian symbolism, because when we really start to get this puzzle together, it goes together. It's not just Kabbalism, it's Egypt as well. I mean, that's why there's a pyramid on the dollar bill and such. So, I'm blown away. And in May of 2009, I put together an artwork of Barack Obama as Akhenaten. And in this artwork, I had an asteroid or meteor hurtling towards planet Earth. And I said, this is the next part of the program. And I began databasing what were anomalous fireballs. And I started this in my Space War News section on FreemanTV.com. All the articles are still there, 4 years of data. As I tracked these incoming fireballs and, things like the AMS, the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, the things going on in the International Space Station. You could have watched the bombing of the moon live from Space War News. You can watch the launches, the launch of the Cloud of Care, which gets into the Norway Spiral. And I tracked these mysterious incoming bolides, or fireballs, because they were being classified really as strange, because what was occurring is they were causing sonic booms, and then earthquakes would follow. And this was highly irregular. And so astronomers were working on this puzzle, and everybody kept saying, look, there's a fireball, but there's no bolide. There's no meteor. There's no rock. And they kept showing this consistently. Now, the first one I tracked, actually, was over the HARP facility in 1999, I think it was, December of 99. As they were testing HARP as a meteor deflection shield. If you don't know, most people now know, I did actually make the first ever documentary on HARP. And now, it's pretty much a common word. But they were testing that system as a meteor deflection shield. And at that moment, a meteor came straight into the space, into the atmosphere, and hit right above the HARP facility on a perfect trajectory. And I'm thinking to myself now, okay, wait a minute. Do we have and I said this in my documentary, do we have the capabilities of hurtling meteors at our own planet? And what happened there in Anchorage was, of course, the sonic boom just freaked everybody out. They were running for their basements, but then an earthquake hit 3 hours later. Now, Milosevic at this time, back in the 90s, 98, so he was coming out saying, America has their earthquake weapon, and they're going to be using it. And, this was on the front page of USA Today. Milosevic accuses U.S. of using HARP technologies to cause earthquakes and floods in the Middle East. That was the headline. And everybody said, he's just saying that,
Yeah, he's just crazy.
So I began tracking these things, and sure enough, no bolide, no meteor, no rocks, right? Just fireballs with sonic booms and earthquakes, and they were happening all over the place. Lo and behold, if all of a sudden they classified these fireballs as secret. Now, I have that article on my website. I was following the astronomers that were into these topics, and they were all in an uproar because that meant the end of all their data. And they kept saying, how can you make fireballs secret? But they did. And this was 3 years ago. And then, lo and behold, because everybody was making such an uproar about there not being any rock, that a rock suddenly fell into the backyard of the University of Pennsylvania, the professor who studies the meteors, and it fell in his backyard. I'm still looking for that article. I lost the article, and if anyone has any knowledge of that, the University of Pennsylvania professor with the bolide that fell in his backyard, to come out and finally say, look, there is a rock, right? Come on. How stupid.
Wow.
Well, I mean, they know that we're not paying attention to this kind of stuff, so...
Yeah.
But here we are now with Russia announcing that they believe we are using a meteor weapon against them. And this was on the AP and Reuters. And sure enough, if I don't have the data to prove that, they are most likely correct. But, of course, they've got their HARP and they've got their systems. But we've got that X-37B up there. And Obama came in on the platform, I will not weaponize space. You can see that on my video that's on the front page of Freeman TV right now. And we know the plan. We know the plan. It's the Red Scare, it's terrorists, it's asteroids, then aliens. And everything's playing out into this. And so I made the artwork 2009 and in May, and I'm saying, okay, look, they're going to use a meteor threat, an asteroid threat, or whatever they need to weaponize space. And sure enough, they announce, oh, my God, there's an asteroid hurtling towards planet Earth. And, of course, it just had its closest flyby, and that was asteroid Apophis. Now, Apophis, and this blew my mind, right? Because my artwork has Obama as Akhenaten, because they're identical, these two. They look identical.
Yeah, I saw that when you first published it. I thought so too. Absolutely unmistakable. Looks identical to Akhenaten.
And seriously, I would have just put that up, chalked it up as coincidence, if it weren't for the fact that the rest of the family is identical to the rest of Akhenaten's family. I mean, Queen T is Michelle Obama. I put her face on Queen T's statue, and people can't even tell I did it because they are so alike. They are so identical. Yeah. And I kept saying that, whoa, guys, because I knew there would be a time where they would bring mummies back. And the ancient Egyptians, they knew that there was a time when they would be coming back. Strangely enough, the pharaohs would say that they would be revived in 3,000 years. And that they mummified themselves for this very purpose. Now, what's really strange about this, in 1985... Nature magazine, prestigious magazine, New York Times, but Nature magazine published it first. They had cloned a mummy in 1985. They cloned cells. They didn't bring a being to life, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But this was a huge mystery. How did a viable cell last 3,500 years to be cloned into the, and now? They don't know. They still don't know how the mummification process works to bring that about.
Wow. This is profound. It is profound because it would indicate that they had technologies, they knew what they were doing, and the oils and the technology that they have to mummify bodies would preserve the cell so that it would be viable 3,500 years later. Incredible. Let's get into that. We've opened up the caller lines. I see we've already got a caller waiting to talk to you, Freeman, so let's go straight into that after the break. Hang in there, folks. You are with Freeman from the Freeman perspective. Thank you.
It hide behind this.
Welcome back, friends. American Freedom Radio. Santos Bonacci, and we have special guest Freeman. And I've got the caller lines open. Do you want to tidy up that thought from before the break, or go straight to the caller, Freeman?
We can go on. Let's go to the calls.
Beautiful. Here we go. Steve, the sign guy from heaven. How are you, mate?
Santos, my brother down under, and Freeman was one of the first guys I found out about after I woke up in September 2006 at the White House. Of course, I was on the Aaron Russo conference call, then I started digging into the Internet, and I forgot how I found you, Freeman, but you're one of the first people I found, and it was just really great to find you, man.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's amazing how this has all transpired and how the Internet has grown.
It is.
Yeah, it's great, yeah. And I learned so much from Santos and all that Hollywood stuff with him and Nicole Smith and Britney Spears. And the thing about Nashville, man, I love your video on Nashville. That's a really, really deep, it's a really mysterious town, Nashville.
Well, that was another huge piece of this puzzle, the fact that actual city plans were being laid out as the sigils of Solomon's magic to bind demons. So he had the Goetia magic, and he identified 7 sigils that would bind these spirits to do their bidding. And as in Nashville at the Capitol Mall, what's called the Bicentennial Mall, it's actually a seal of Solomon to bind spirits that sits upon a Native American burial ground. But then it expanded. Now you can look to Astana in Kazakhstan and to Canberra in Australia. And from the satellite view, once again, you can see these the city plans, these pre-planned cities, are actually designed as these ancient Goetia seals to bind or utilize demonic spirits.
Yeah, cool. I was talking to you the other night about my experiences at the White House, man, all the stuff I experienced there. So, yeah, man, it's great stuff, man. I mean, I'm a little tired right now, guys. I worked all day. But, yeah, Freeman, it's great that you're on Santos' show because, Santos is all over the world now. I tell you, he's on there like every day, every minute.
That's fantastic. You're down in Florida, right?
Yeah, I'm in Deerfield Beach. Hey, Santos, I'm going to put in a pitch for you on an AM 850 local radio station down here. A guy named Rich Stevens, a Rich Stevens show. He's been letting people talk. Like a few weeks ago, I only listened to him like 10 minutes when I'm on a break. Holding my sign from heaven out by the street and getting people to go get a massage. But this guy, a guy from Miami Joe, man, he's talking about the Illuminati, and this is AM 850, I called in yesterday and talked about the Pope, and that. I'm going to call in tomorrow because I'm off tomorrow, and I'm going to tell people, hey, well, Rich, if you really want to get some really good truth, you need to listen to my buddy Santos Bonacci in Melbourne, Australia, Mr. Astrotheology. I even mentioned that, well, how do we know that this Christ was the, who is the Christ or the Anointed One? It's Malachi chapter 4, verse 2, right? When the S-U-N of righteousness. But, yeah, I'm going to call in, put in a pitch for you, your show, and put in a pitch for Freeman, It's like it's opening up everywhere. I mean, even on, local mainstream radio shows, the truth is just coming out all over the world, man, and it's great, I think. And thanks to you guys for bringing so much of it out.
Thank you,
Thanks, Steve. Yep, good to have your support, brother. Great to have your support. Very encouraging. Thank you very much. And likewise, I'd like to also thank you, Freeman, for many, many years of devotion and great videos. That Nashville one was a good one too. You showed a lot of. What about that harmonic area with all the pillars around it? That mall,
the Carillon. Yeah, the Carillon at the Capitol of the Centennial. Now, they also have a similar one in Portland, Oregon. And interestingly, okay, so in the one in Nashville, so it looks like a keyhole, and basically that circle at the top would be the top of the keyhole, and that circle has a semicircle of columns around it that all have bells in their capitals, and they're all set in such a position that if you stand in the center of the triple pentagrams, which is the sign of the Titans, right? The Nashville Titans, right? Tennessee, which of course are the gods, if you don't know where I'm going with that. And you stand in the center of these pentagrams. Now, what's curious is that the marble that they use is 3 different variations of marble with red, blue, and white, with variations of quartz crystal embedded into each of these. And, of course, that plays heavily into all of this technology and into what we're looking at in the esoteric realms. But if you stand right in the center of the pentagrams, then everything you say reverberates straight back to that single point. And it's an architectural wonder that they set up there. And they spent millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on this park that no one cares about. No one sees. It has a timeline that forms around it in a black basalt or black granite wall that starts at ancient Atlantis and goes up to today. It's a horrifying park, really, as you go around it and you see signs and big pillars with monoliths with nuclear explosions on it, and big black earth floating on water, which is surrounded by holly trees or Hollywood, the magician's wand. And, of course, the Georgia Guidestones, which is also in that film, I think, is I ended up just traveling around the United States. I go homeless every once in a while doing this show because, it's taken some time for people to understand that it's worth their dollars to support us. And so sometimes I go homeless, and when I do, I just take the camera with me, and I go and I film all this crazy stuff. And then I come back, and I manage to sit in a home again, and I edit. And but the Georgia Guidestones, of course, they will be 33 years old on 3/22. So that's one date that a lot of people are looking at. And it's, of course, the time that Barack will be in Israel at the Temple Mount, and at the same time, the Pope, getting reelected or reselected, however that's going to work. So 3/22 this year might be a very curious day. I don't know.
Well, what's that about the re-elected? The same Pope you're talking about?
No. I'm sorry. To select the new Pope. That'll happen, I think, on the 28th.
Right.
And so Obama's in Israel the 20th through the 22nd or 23rd, something like that. And then the new Pope will be elected a week later. You remember when they elected old Benedict or, Palpatine, whatever you want to call him, Ratzinger. To get back to that 66 real quick, Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars, of course, executed Order 66, which was also known as Nightfall, which goes to the Batman slaughters, but execute Order 66, they said in Star Wars, and this was the execution of all the Jedi. And it was the clones who were then programmed to, the moment they hear the number 66, to kill all the Jedi. And it was a programming they couldn't escape. So there again, you got your 66 symbolism. I mean, it's just consistent. This has been a consistent thing. And when it boiled down to being the mark of the beast as well, the O and with the X inside of the O, which the beast in X-Men wears, and Russell Brand, then this really started to come just full circle. We got the whole situation with Barack Obama. I forgot where we started on this puzzle that we were just talking about now. Oh, we were up to Georgia Guidestones. Gotcha. Okay. End of the world. Yeah. So Barack Obama, lightning from heaven. The Secret Service gave them names as well. So his name is Renegade in the Secret Service. And, of course, if you look up the definition, this means one that turns on his people, party, and religion, an apostate. One that stabs is that's a renegade, right? And that's what they call Barack Obama in the Secret Service. The Renaissance was given to Michelle, and Renaissance is rebirth, brought back to life, just like Queen T has been done. And then the daughters, Malaya and Sasha, they've got Rosebud and Radiance as their Secret Service names. Now, if you look at the image of Akhenaten with Nefertiti and his two daughters, which are Mereteten and Aksunamung, I believe are the two names, you'll see, well, first of all, okay, Akhenaten brought about, a flip of Egypt, destroyed the capital, brought Amarna to made the capital of Egypt Amarna instead of Thebes. He flipped their religion, bringing them monotheism instead of their multi-gods. And he brought about the most realistic artistic time Egypt had ever seen, and depicting himself with his family was something that pharaohs had never done. And on top of that, he was depicted as he seemed to have been, and that is with a cone head and big wide hips. Now, what happened was he's of course father of King Tut and Tutankhamun, but not through Nefertiti, through a different wife, Kia. But so what occurred was, Akhenaten got taken out of power, obviously, and his body was lost. His tomb was lost, and no one had anything. In the 1920s, I believe it was, around there, archaeologists discovered what they call the KV-55 tomb, right, in the Valley of the Kings, KV-55. And this has been an anomaly throughout archaeology for all this time, because they were certain they had found Akhenaten's tomb. But they couldn't prove it because all of the artifacts that had Akhenaten's name on it had been scratched out. The tomb itself had been desecrated, but then resealed, right? But they did find Queen T's toilet. They did find a number of artifacts from Akhenaten and Queen T and the daughters, and so they were certain. So the archaeologists sent the mummy to a doctor. Well, he had a doctor come to the KV-55 room first, and he determined it was a woman and said, nope, sorry, you found a woman. Then he sent those bones to another doctor, and they said, oh, yeah, this is definitely a man. Now, this was one of the concerning factors with Akhenaten, because they say he had Marfan syndrome, but that's just an excuse to try and explain why he had a cone head and big wide hips, right? Why he looked so effeminate, and why he would depict himself as this being in the most realistic artistic period of Egypt, right? But yeah. So he's the initial ancient astronaut. If anyone's looking for ancient astronauts, Akhenaten is always the first one to pop up because of all the things that he did. He was an alien. I mean, he friggin' flipped everything on its head. He had a cone head and did all these things. Well, so lo and behold, here I know Barack Obama is about to come out and release restrictions on stem cell research, i.e. allowing human cloning. All right? And I knew this was coming. I had already been following the human cloning story for quite some time. I'm laying this all out. It will be my topic of discussion at my two conferences. I will be at the Free Your Mind 2 in Philadelphia, April 26th, 27th. And we might be showing Don Peyote at the after party. So anyone that knows about the film I'm in, Don Peyote with Dan Fogler, be looking forward to that. And I'll be at the conference, Conspiracy Con in California in June, I think. And I'll be discussing these very things because here I knew Barack Obama was coming out to release the restrictions on stem cell research. I knew that 19 projects had already been sent up to the International Space Station with stem cells to seek longevity for humanity. Those are sitting there with a telepresence robot, Robonaut 2 or R2, another Star Wars reference. R2 is up there. He's a telepresence robot. You can transmit your mind into this robot and function through it. This was something Michael Jackson was heavily into. And he sought out Michael Jackson. You could just follow him, right? He was running around with Uri Geller, and now that takes you to the Nine or the Archons, because Uri Geller was the transit, the messenger for the Nine to the elite. And the Nine are the Ennead of Egypt: Osiris, Isis, Horus, Geb, Nuit, all of those, right? So Uri Geller's running around with Michael Jackson while Michael Jackson is trying to get a clone from the Raelians, and then decides to hire this roboticist, and I have the interview from the roboticist, to transfer his soul into this robot called Iraq, But that didn't really happen, and I personally believe that Michael Jackson then bought a ticket for time travel. Because a month after Michael Jackson died, quote unquote, I don't believe he died. I believe that whole thing was a huge act of prestidigitation, and that he set the whole thing up. And that right before all of this happened, he went off and he went to Harrods, and he bought a golden replica of King Tut's sarcophagus. And when asked, you can see this in the documentary, he's asked, are you going to be buried in that sarcophagus? And Michael says, no, I'm going to live forever. Because he had been planning all this stuff. And lo and behold, if a month after Michael Jackson's supposed death, if everyone all of a sudden noticed this bust in the Chicago Museum, home of Barack Obama, the Chicago Museum has a bust of Michael Jackson from the period of Akhenaten, the exact timeline that this would need to be falling into. And it's Michael. I mean, And the curious thing was I interviewed the head of the Time Travel Institute, the Anderson Institute, right before he went black and vanished. And he told me that they could not control the time travel going on in Saudi Arabia, that they have time control mechanisms to stop other nations from time traveling. But they were having real issues controlling Saudi Arabia. Well, sure enough, when Michael Jackson reported on the news that he had died, they kept wondering, well, why is he $500,000 in debt to this Saudi Arabian? They kept asking this over and over again on the news. And I had all these pieces of the puzzle going, oh, my God. Now, see, this would play into the whole Obama thing and the Akhenaten cloning. So I knew Obama was going to release the restrictions on stem cells. So I started to talk about the human cloning factor. I thought it was going to be a big deal. I really did. I thought people would be talking about the president releasing restrictions on stem cells, but I didn't realize that people didn't realize what that meant, that this opened the door to human cloning for experimentation. He had to stand there on stage and say, we will not allow human cloning for reproduction. But in his legalese, leaving out the omission of the fact that they could use it for experimentation, we know that's just as legitimate. And here he was, standing out there in front of the people saying, we are opening the door to human cloning. And like I say, there's 6 stem cells sitting on the International Space Station seeking longevity. But now, when we're looking at Obama being a clone of Akhenaten, we are not saying that he is Akhenaten, because that's impossible. But we'll get to CERN and what this all ties into.
Yeah, hang on to that thought.
You're a son of mine. Make me proud to know you want a gun.
Welcome back, folks, with Santos Bonacci on American Freedom Radio and special guest Freeman. Freeman, we can go straight back to the conversation we were having before the break, please. And then I've got another caller I'd like to go to. Steve, are you still with us?
Yeah, man, I wanted to say something about Michael Jackson I saw on the news, man. Remember when they were rolling his body out to the ambulance? When it went over the curb, that body on the gurney bounced up, man. It wasn't a real body. It was a fake body.
Yeah, if you go to, I have a section on freemantv.com where you can, it's called Weird Videos. And I database everything that I think is just, out there and also proves my points. And I have a video in there of Michael Jackson climbing out of the coroner's vehicle. Of course, this would explain the mysterious ghost that they were filming of Michael Jackson pacing in the background during the news story about his death. And many of the other, the fact that they spirited his body away in the middle of the night. And then there's strange reports of them taking out his brain. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I saw that on TV, and they never showed that again, where you could see whatever that body was, it bounced like it was a fake body, when they went over the curb, by the ambulance. I mean, it was not a real body.
Do you remember the time, Come on, he was with Eddie Murphy, who was playing Akhenaten, and he was the golden magic boy that transported himself into Egypt,
Hey, I got one more thing, man. Why does Michelle Obama have such a big, gigantic butt?
A big what? Sorry, I didn't get that.
She's got a huge butt, man. I mean, her butt is like, it's got something in that ass.
Well, Queen T, who Michelle Obama would be, is the curious one in this whole tale because she was the true co-regent. She was truly in charge of Akhenaten while he was growing up and getting into this position of power. Queen T, or Michelle Obama, would actually be the power behind this. Now, realize that if we're looking at this puzzle and we're saying that they actually cloned these people, I believe they would have cloned the rest of the family as well. So when you see that Obama's actually living with his mother, Michelle would be Akhenaten's mother, Queen T, not his wife, Nefertiti. Nefertiti, if she was alive and out here, she would be Beyonce. I mean, I have read every book now on Akhenaten that I can, including a fictional tale about Nefertiti, which actually was based on the history. And these are who these people would be. And Jay-Z would be Semakar, who was the other co-regent that was going along with Nefertiti, and when Akhenaten and King Tut was taken out, well, we had a military coup take over, but Semakar was the pharaoh set to take place. So we would actually have Jay-Z and Beyonce, and then this would really explain things as to why she was singing "At Last My Love Has Come," or the song that she sang at the inauguration, and then the upset at the next inauguration. Very bizarre situations. I forgot there was one hologram that had to play into that whole situation. But yeah, you might as well take it as far as it'll go if you're going to look at the piece and see. You got to see.
Hey guys, let me bring in Chris, another caller. Just bear with us there, Steve. Hang in there because I won't unmute you. But just bear in mind that we've got Chris. Chris, you there?
Yeah, man. Hey, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to have George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, even Benjamin, totally hologrammed, talking all shit on the politicians of today. That would be just great. Anyway. Yeah.
Well, with what I'm talking about, this is actually becoming very close to a possibility. Because as I was saying, that Akhenaten, Obama would not literally be Akhenaten. He would be a clone, as a completely separate being. But as I was discussing with Michael Jackson and him looking into this roboticist for mind transfer technologies, and as I explained that the Robonaut 2 on the International Space Station...
About the DNA and how... I guess they're trying to do Akhenaten, right?
All right, go.
I'm not into the... I've watched here and there Ancient Aliens, here and there, and I do find it kind of interesting, but then I do see it as bullshit, of course.
Well, you got to understand that the story will be controlled, that the method comes out, but the plot is lost. Because they're not going to give you the details. They're not going to allow you to fully understand the situation, and you're only going to get as much as they will allow you. But what you can bank on is that the ancient architectural structures, like Baalbek, Lebanon, cannot be recreated in the 21st century. We do not have the technology to build Baalbek, Lebanon. So that tells you right then and there that there was something more going on in the ancient past. We have these architectural anomalies.
Yeah, you can tell this guy's a sly liar. I saw a little bit of him. I didn't even watch the State of the Union, but it just pissed me off. You could see this sly lying bastard just selling his bullshit more and more and more, making it sound good. And he's just doing it with full confidence, like, man, I own this room. That's how he was doing it. And this guy's no ancient, They're going to try to sell it like it is, possibly. I don't know. It seems like everything they try to sell eventually gets, ransacked by people like us who know these things and know what they're going to do. And obviously their plots are failing everywhere they turn. I do think we got to prepare for what's going to happen eventually. They're going to bring down the economy after a gun confiscation. So, in America, I think. And I think we need to prepare, stand together, definitely. And
there are absolutely many layers to this psychological warfare that we're under, and I highly recommend watching Walt Disney's Chicken Little to get an idea of the psychology and the way that they manipulate the situation. They outline many of their methods right there in Chicken Little. And that is part of this whole schemata, the idea of generating the gun rally crowd and then the anti-gun rally crowd so that they'll eliminate one another. So people are trying to stand on one platform or the other, but as Santos said, they're working with bad wiring. There's viruses in the programming, and you don't even know where the name America came from. You don't know the foundation of this nation and the philosophical beliefs that were actually in the minds of these founding fathers and their connections with the esoteric arts. I mean, you know how much effort it took to put pentagrams in the street plans of Washington, D.C.? This was no simple task.
I'm going to say something. In the world we live in today, surrounded by sheeple everywhere, it's not their fault. It honestly isn't their fault that they've been programmed this way to be this dumb, to be this stupid. But you need to implant an idea in their mind. Hey, turn off your TV. Go see your girlfriend. Hey, go enjoy yourself today. Take a walk. How about that? Just simple little ideas. You don't need to, honestly tell people about this all the time, ransack it down their throat about...
No, you got to plant seeds, absolutely. The moment you start browbeating, you turn them off immediately.
I know. Like at first, when I hear about Akhenaten and stuff like that, it's like, okay. But then I start
to listen. This is because we've lost our sense of wonder, and we have been engineered into skeptics.
So my mind's open. My third eye ain't blind. So, yeah. And, that's how my mind is. It's completely open. It's completely wide.
But you see, I mean, when all of the evidence is there, all the data is there. They suddenly announced out of the blue. Now, I'd given most of the story about how the KV-55 mummy was a huge mystery in archaeology, and that no one would actually determine that mummy was Akhenaten, and that the old elder lady and the younger daughter were Queen T and Merita Ten. They were not going to classify and say this, right? They never, for 120 years, this has been a debate in archaeology. But lo and behold, 2 months after I announced that I believe Obama is a clone of Akhenaten, they release on the Discovery Channel, of all places, that they actually have the DNA of Akhenaten. They came out with it on the Discovery Channel show on Who is King Tut's Daddy, and they show you the DNA of the KV-55 mummy. You can see the letters KV and the numbers 55 on there, and you can see that they have the DNA of Akhenaten. And, of course, they're saying, yes, actually we have the DNA of Akhenaten. There was Zahi Hawass. Now, that's one corrupt guy, and he's the one who was in charge of the capping of the Great Pyramid with gold. He was the one that brought Obama there to say, hey, you look just like that guy, and to make him out as King Tut, which, of course, was Akhenaten's son. But what we have is that they came out and announced that they did have the DNA, and Zahi Hawass, the same man who just got fired for accepting bribes and sexual favors for archaeology, had to admit that Akhenaten's DNA had been classified as top secret by the National Security Act, and that they could not have told anyone that they had Akhenaten's DNA. Now, you tell me why.
They must have wow.
We're talking about 120 years of debate. You can go to any archaeological site and look up the KV-55 mummy mystery. It has been one that's been running, for over a century. And they just come boldly out on Discovery Channel. Oh, by the way, it was a national security secret. Our apologies.
Yeah, well, these are these people.
The whole point of the factor is that they're stranger than we know. And so when we get locked up in political spectrums and we start talking about gun confiscation, taxes, and the fall of the economy, you miss the entire puzzle of who these guys are. Because what they are doing is seeking the anti-universe. They are punching a hole into the other dimension and hoping that something will come through. Now, they have all these esoteric books. They know about the abyss. They use it as their corporate logos. And what they're going to do is punch a hole. Now, the cloud of care which happened in America, was the first portal attempt there with the aluminum oxide cloud. And then you got the Norway spiral, which happened after that. Now, here I was covering the Cloud of Care, which is the Charged Aerosol Research Project, experiment, CARE, and they launched this rocket up into the upper atmosphere and released a aluminum oxide cloud. Now, that's what you're going to find in your chemtrails and some others. But then the same event occurred in Norway, and, of course, everybody was like, whoa, what the heck is that? It's like a portal's opening up in the sky. There's a giant spiral opening over the ISCAT ionospheric heater, you know, the HARP of Sweden, right? They have their ISCAT there, which actually ISCAT, now realize this, ISCAT sent a Doritos commercial to Ursa Major. But one better than that, when they decided to use oh, God, I forgot which antenna array it was called, but I have it in my article on my website. But they used the antenna array to send The Day the Earth Stood Still with Keanu Reeves. You remember this wonderful film that basically implied humans are so horrible, any aliens that find us just, you know, send a giant robot to destroy us all, or we're going to destroy ourselves. That was the plot of the movie. They telecast that movie to Alpha Centauri.
You're not good enough to live. Wow. Right? It's amazing, yeah. You know?
All right. So they're sending messages to our alien space brothers in the closest known inhabited galaxy, and they're sending the day the Earth stood still. I mean, why didn't they send them like 2001? Why didn't they send them something that, you know, spoke to the heart of people? But no. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Hello?
Thanks, Chris. Is that it for your questions? I've got another caller I want to try and squeeze in if I can.
Right, of course.
Welcome back, friends. This is the last segment we have with Freeman. I have a caller, Mary Jane, and another one after that I'd like to grab before we close the show off. So over to you, Mary Jane. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I'll be very quick. I'm sorry that I didn't have an opportunity to meet you when you were in California, Freeman. But with the craziness of everybody focusing on Democrat and liberal and all that kind of stuff, I always pop in one of your videos because it's like, that's the big picture. But the point I'm calling for is you keep saying that with Obama being a clone, he's not really Akhenaten. But when a person gets an organ of another person, they tend to bring on that parts of that personality. You know what I mean? So if it is part of the soul, wouldn't it have some of that personality?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's actually been classified by the head of narcissism. I can't think of the doctor's name, but the specialist of narcissism as a classic narcissist, as Akhenaten was. And, you know, Akhenaten was a poet, and he believed in his own, you know, BS. And so there would be lots of those traits because, yes, genetic memory is absolutely proven. You know, as we look at the animals that, you know, Monarch, the whole Monarch program, the idea of the mind control slaves was based on the fact that monarchs will travel a long distance with generations dying off, never knowing how the next generation knew where to go. And that's why they called it the Monarch program, because of this generational memory. And I think that's what inspired me, because I had a generational memory from this long line of Freemasons and dads that chase aliens. You know, I didn't know any of that before I was studying it all. So, yes, you would retain the genetic memory. But what I believe is happening now is their attempt to punch a hole through time into Akhenaten's period. And with Michael Jackson's bust showing up, I believe they did it. And so then they would have a time portal through which they could transfer the soul of Akhenaten into Obama's body. And this would be a great graphic novel that I may write one of these days, maybe soon. It's just boiling inside of me. But if you had this time loop opening, which Dr. Anderson explained to me, that you could then use this mind transfer technologies. But the problem is that we have yet to have a computer that was capable of full mind transfer technologies. This takes what's called exabytes of information. That's 1 quintillion bytes. A million terabytes, right? And the only computer on the planet at this moment that's getting anywhere near this is the LHC grid, or CERN's supercomputer. Now, CERN was the one that brought us the World Wide Web, the Internet, and all of the wonders that we use now, and they are also the ones that are punching a hole into the other dimension. So coupled with these technologies, you would be able to actually, now, as I said, they used iSCAT to send a Doritos commercial. They used the space-based transmission to send the day the Earth stood still to Alpha Centauri. That same radio frequency wave can also carry a soul, as they put in quotes, right? This was Pravda. This is all front page science. This is nothing I'm making up. Henry Markram is the head of the Blue Brain Project, which is the lead research into mind transfers technologies. And as I say, the Robonaut 2 and the X-37B, the robotic space shuttle, those are both set up for mind transfer technologies. So everything's in place except for the capability. CERN has just announced that their grid has gone to 100 petabytes. So this is getting close. This is getting very close. Henry Markram, strangely enough, the head of the Blue Brain Project, along with the UN's alien ambassador, Mazian Othman, and the Vatican astronomers who said aliens are our space brothers, they all had a large meeting with the Royal Society to determine how to reveal extraterrestrials to humanity and what things would occur in this revelation. So we've already got a United Nations alien ambassador. We've got a NASA alien ambassador, and she's a Rothschild, Linda Rothschild. And then we have the Vatican astronomers, who was actually the Pope's own meteorite curator. You know, he took care of the Pope's meteors. And he's the one that came out and said that aliens are our space brothers and didn't suffer original sin. And then there was the other the other astronomer who was actually the head of the Vatican astronomy, who said that aliens are our space brothers, and I don't care how many tentacles they have, they'll come to Christ, you know. And these were the two gentlemen that they sent to CERN when they were launching the alpha magnetic spectrometer up into the International Space Station with Robonaut 2, right? And the 6 adult stem cells. So these are the things that I'm saying matter. And if they did open a time portal and did manage to get the capabilities using the LHC grid, the supercomputer, or even Google Fiber, I don't know, you know, what capabilities that's going to have, because what we're talking about is direct fiber optic lines that are centralizing many computers. There's 200,000 in the grid. And then using that technology to transfer Akhenaten's soul into Obama's body from the ancient past, right? Or vice versa, we'd be able to, you know, the mind transfer technology, if it, you know, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, that is a biggie. Thanks, Mary Jane. Did you have another question?
No, just thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, sister. Take care.
Avatar, the movie Avatar, is a perfect example of mind transfer technologies. And if you remember, they had to use the character's brother because he had the genetic receptors to clone with this alien. And so the mind transfer technology would only work because he had the proper genetics. So in that same form of Avatar, it would be Obama's genes being Akhenaten's genes. Therefore, he could receive the mind transfer as they did in Avatar. And if you think Avatar's crazy, then there is a project called Avatar, and it was put out by a Russian entrepreneur who's getting billionaires to pay for his computer to make this mind transfer technologies, that he intends to transmit your soul into a robot and then into a hologram. Now, this is, once again, front page news, you know, nothing I'm making up. That's Ipkich, I think was his name. It's all in my article in Paranoia. But then the Russian entrepreneur went to DARPA, and the Defense Advanced Research Projects, and said, hey, you know, I got this Avatar program going. Why don't you get in with me? And the DARPA told the Russian, no, we already have an Avatar program in play. So if you think anything I'm saying is crazy, it's all already happening.
Incredible. Just one last caller, Freeman, if you don't mind. Caller, are you there? Number 0822. If you can just keep the question brief, thank you very much.
Hi, guys. Good evening. I'm calling from South Carolina, United States. I want to ask Freeman about the Sandy Hook, what Jay Widener's comments were on Sandy Hook, that they were, and there was another agency that was creating false information and doing fake interviews.
Yeah, Sandy Hook. I had to put that in my Weird Stuff magazine as these things started to unfold. I began an article on this, and it became a full 22-page chapter. So
I'm looking forward to getting my copy, actually, Freeman.
Oh, yeah, all right, yeah, and so we're looking into printing now. We're getting the publication ready. Just so you know, it should be out hopefully by the middle to mid-late March. We should have the PDF going really soon. I've had to learn all these technologies like InDesign and stuff to get it going. But Weird Stuff is awesome. We're so excited. I can't wait to get the next. We're doing 9 of them in total. And I wrote a real in-depth article on this Sandy Hook. Not as in-depth as I wanted to get. But, you know, because we're left there with the situation of we don't even know whether it happened. And then the town of Sandy Hook is so bizarre in its own ways. I mean, Suzanne Collins, who wrote The Hunger Games, which is basically an outline for Project Bluebeam in many ways. She lives there. The Church of Satan has a P.O. box there. And then the guy, the fact that Sandy Hook showed up in the Batman Dark Knight Rises movie, which, of course, was based on Nightfall, which was Execute Order 66 in Star Wars. We have the Sandy Hook in the map on Batman. I better wrap this up. But, it's all there in Weird Stuff. And I would love to talk about it, but it would take another hour.
Right, but the thing about that Jay Widener made, I think it was on Mr. Bonacci's show a couple of weeks ago, about they were saying that they were actors, and he was saying that maybe the actors were from another agency that's working against this secret cabal, just trying to pull all these things off, you know.
Oh yeah, that gets way too deep for me. I definitely, Gene Rosen was not a member of the Screen Actors Guild. Chris Rodia definitely was not at the scene, but it's possible that they had used his car in the incident and didn't realize that they didn't change the front license plate, because the car did seem to be registered to Rodia. So, but he definitely wasn't there.
What about people dressed up like nuns?
Both brothers before, huh?
The people dressed up like nuns. There was a report.
There were the nuns, there were the clergy, and there was the fact that all of the high school students were sent to the bowling alley that day. I've got an insider report on them all being bowling for Columbine during the event.
All right. Well, I look forward to getting my my subscription and talking with you guys. I've been following you for years, man. And
thank you, and thank you, Santos, man. We'll have to talk more.
Yeah. Thank you, Freeman. We've come to the very, very end now. And as usual, we always seem to run out of time. Just when it's starting to hot up, we'll have to do it again. Thank you, brother, and thank you, listeners. Catch you next week. Take care.
If you want to be a hero, well, just follow me. If you want to be a hero, well, just follow me.
Now you and your family and friends can enjoy the cleanest, most delicious, and healthy drinking water anytime, even while traveling, camping, at sporting events, or in emergency situations. The Berkey removes bacteria, cysts, parasites, and harmful chemicals to below detectable levels. It also reduces nitrates and unhealthy minerals like lead and mercury, while leaving in the beneficial and nutritional minerals your body needs. Berkey is so powerful, it can even purify raw, untreated water from remote lakes and streams. And the optional PF2 filters even remove fluoride. The Berkey LED, with its rechargeable lighting system, can be used as a nightlight or camp light. To view or purchase your Berkey water system and replacement filters, please visit American Freedom Radio's website at AmericanFreedomRadio.com and click the Berkey banner. Once again, that's AmericanFreedomRadio.com, and click the Berkey Water banner. Not yet available in Iowa.
Hi, I'm Trina, and I'm here to tell you about something that has changed my life. RNA drops are amazing and chemical-free. They seem to help whatever in you needs help. RNA drops can soften pains, ailments, fears, or for some create healing, bliss, confidence, or spiritual expansion. Sometimes your body can actually ache from the growing pains of ascension. RNA drops can ease that pain and so much more. Here's what happened to my friend Clark.
Are you having trouble with erectile dysfunction due to high blood pressure medication or other prescription meds? A friend of mine suggested that I try RNA drops to heal my foot, and to my surprise, my ED problems were over.
Well, surprisingly, my libido increased too. I would love to share with you a free sample bottle of RNA drops. Pay only shipping and handling. Visit TrinasGoodDrops.com.
You can stand by and do nothing, or you can live and feel good again. Get your free sample of RNA drops and hear what others have to say. Visit TrinasGoodDrops.com.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs and artillery batteries not included. Has your heart been pounding? Feel short of breath? Got high blood pressure or problems sleeping? Heart disease is the leading cause of death. Being surrounded by fast food, toxic air and poisoned water has a cumulative effect as we enter later life. Medications that only address symptoms ensure these problems persist, while your family and finances suffer. It's time to work with the body and its own innate ability to heal itself. Heart and Body Extract is a natural, organic herbal supplement that restores balance. A heart attack could be just around the corner. Spare your loved ones pain and fear. Protect yourself, protect your health with Heart and Body Extract. With a lifetime money-back guarantee, you have no excuse. Order a 2-month supply today. Call toll-free 866-295-5305. That's 866-295-5305. Or order online at hbextract.com.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.